This game is meant to be played cooperatively, and Karkat will eventually assume the role as the leader, in line with his ancestry, but they start out with 2 teams playing competitively. As a player, once you enter the game, you're transported along with your home from your universe to a place called the Incipisphere, and a planet appears with an impossibly high cliff that your house sits atop. While your physical self will reside on this planet, you will have a dream self that awakens on the moon of a distant planet to explore. The Incipisphere functions similar to a solar system, but instead of a star at the center sits a baby blue sphere called Skya, filled with clouds that show you visions of the past, present, and future when you gaze into them. At the center of Skya is the battlefield, a chessboard that starts out as a 3x3 square with only 2 kings, getting more complex as more players enter the game. It is a battle that White is designed, or shall we say destined, to lose. Orbiting closest to Skya is the planet where all the white pieces live, and attached by a giant chain is a moon with towers where the dream selves of half of the players live. Kanaya is already awakened at this point, and has been exploring this planet in her dreams for years now. Orbiting Skya equidistantly are all the players' planets, 1 for each kid, and beyond this ring is an asteroid belt known as the Veil. Beyond the Veil is the planet where the black pieces live, and the same type of moon on a chain hosting the dream selves of the other half of the players. Outside of that is the furthest ring, where the horror terrors reside in paradox space. Paradox space, buying into multiverse theory, is the space between universes. It is where time and space have no meaning, nor does meaning itself. The moon of the Black Piece planet will sometimes drift into the furthest ring, and dreaming players can hear the whispers of the horror terrors, learning critical truths that can help them win their game session. Likewise, the White Piece moon drifts in and out of Skya's atmosphere, allowing dreamers a more explicit reveal of the game. It was this division of dreamers that caused the 12 troll kids to believe that they were playing on 2 separate teams, and it wasn't until much later that they realized they were working towards the same goal. Entering the game requires you to be connected to a server player, yourself being the client player. The purpose of your server player is to manipulate your environment and keep track of your resources, while your purpose as the client is to fight off enemies, collect loot, and discover your planet. Your server player then connects to a server player of his own, and so on until the cycle is completed. At some point during the journey, Kanaya discovers an incomplete walkthrough of the game on a remote server in Paradox Space, written by someone from an alternate universe who had played but given up on writing it before the game was finished. Kanaya uses this invaluable, albeit incomplete publication to help her and her friends better understand the game. One particular construct of the game is the kernel sprite that must be combined with something before you enter. Throughout the game, the lucis of each of these troll kids suffers a tragic death and is merged with the corresponding player's kernel sprite. This adds attributes to certain NPCs in the game, including that of a crab beast, a tiny fairy bull, a 2-headed eye-blasting cyclops, the horror terror that is Pfefferi's Lucis, and ultimately, a frog's head statue. The king and queen of either side of the battlefield have all 12 of these attributes, save for the Black Queen in this instance. Upon the final merge, she forfeits her magic power ring due to her hatred towards frogs, the depiction thereof highly offensive and illegal among the forces of darkness. The Black Queen is then exiled from the game, along with possibly some other pieces and 4 of the Dark Kingdom's agents, including the Archagent Jack Noir, who holds a deep contempt for her. These exiles are sent to the Troll's home planet, and centuries after its desolation, are made to discover some sort of fallout station, complete with rations, an etiquette book, and machinery that allows them to communicate with certain players in the game session. Through this machinery, Jack convinces Karkat to work with his past self to orchestrate the exile of the Black Queen, and the Queen communicates with Terezi and Vriska to do the same for Jack. How these exiles make it to the planet in the first place is through an event called the Reckoning, which occurs after the forces of light concede defeat upon the battlefield. The Black King may then initiate the Reckoning, sending the asteroids of the Veil hurtling towards Skya over the course of about 24 hours, eventually destroying the battlefield if not stopped. To protect itself, Skya opens up defensive portals, sending the first few waves of meteors towards the player's homeworld throughout various points in time, most of which as they are entering the game. Certain asteroids throughout the Veil have specific purpose, whether it be housing exiles, manufacturing pieces for battle, or anything the author can fathom. On one, there's a laboratory responsible for the creation of the first Guardian, with machinery operated by a draconian dignitary of the Dark Kingdom, using ghost imprints of 2 objects from Alternia and books of code certain players have written in their subconscious before the start of the game. These 2 objects are the magic cue ball and the Cal dummy that Kanaya repaired and resuited after Aradia had discovered it. The books of code are TAVROS, Aradia, Vriska, and Terezi's LARPing manuals, in which they had scribbled the letters tick, talk, break, and heads respectively, along with Karkat's Programming 101 book, in which his high-blooded juggalo friend Gamzee Makara wrote the letters honk honk. These 24 alphanumeric characters are used as genetic code, combined with the aforementioned object imprints to form the first Guardian of Alternia's universe, known by many names, but to us the reader as Doc Scratch. He is sent to the beginning of Alternia's timeline with the purpose of influencing the culture to become ruthless and bloodthirsty. The players never see this character, but he talks with them through their chat client in an all-white text that we have to highlight to read. When we are introduced to him formally, he takes command of the narrative and the background shifts to a green color so we have an easier time reading his white text. Another large asteroid is discovered by Karkat on his quest. It contains the ectobiology equipment he uses to create infant versions of himself and his 11 friends, along with each of their ancestors. These 24 Wigglers are transported to individual meteors that, during the Reckoning, are sent through portals to Alternia, destined for various points in time and space. Karkat also teams up with Kanaya to complete a critical objective that involves frog breeding. The perfect tadpole will be used as the Genesis frog to birth a new universe if they are successful in beating the game. They end up creating said tadpole using the ectobiology equipment, but having rushed the project, Karkat has a strange gut feeling about the finished product. End of chapter.